Hi all, Austin the Brimstone here. I've got a really cool action figure, as you can see. It is a goat, and it is a knight. It is a goat knight. So this spoke to me at WonderCon 2023. When you go to conventions, you see all sorts of cool independent action figures that you wouldn't see at big box retail. When I go to any store, whether it's a Target or Walmart or Barnes & Noble, I always make an effort to check the toy aisle and sort of see what figures are on the pegs. Usually I check a couple of the lines I do collect, Sonic the Hedgehog, Calico Krotos, but I also like to be surprised by something new. But when you go to a convention, you really can get surprised, because those independent toy lines that don't get distribution at big box retail stores. And one of them is Mythic Legions. Mythic Legions is an independent toy line created by a very talented studio called the Four Horsemen. When I was a teenager, I was a big fan of their previous work, The Outer Spacemen. 2010, 11, 12, 13, I was going to the Four Horsemen's booth at conventions and buying these alien action figures. They were cheap, they were different, they were cool, and they weren't something you could get at the store. They were just different, and they were quality. They were really quality figures. Now, Four Horsemen has sort of grown a lot in the past decade, and now they're making these 6-inch figures, a little different than the Outer Spacemen, but perhaps more in line with the line they got their start on, which was He-Man. They were actually commissioned by Mattel to make the 2000s He-Man toy line. So now they're kind of back to their roots, making what is basically their own version of Masters of the Universe mixed with all kinds of fantasy. It's got influences from Narnia, from Tolkien, from Rankin Bass. There's a really, really wonderful Santa Claus and Krampus set. And for a long time, I've been dodging this line. The figures can be quite pricey, and again, you can't buy them at big box retail, so you have to order them online or buy them through an independent comic shop. And I would see the skeletons and the dwarves and even some of the elves and go, oh, those are great, but I just don't have space for that. I can't bite the bullet on that one. But then last Christmas, they showed off that Santa Claus and Krampus, and now I'm like, okay, maybe I'm all in with Mythic Legions. Maybe there's a chance here. And finally, they came out with their newest figure here, Krotos. A figure I absolutely could not say no to. You know, on this channel, I greatly enjoy animal action figures, especially when they're in fantasy or medieval garb, and I love goats. I mean, my character, Austin the Brimstone, is a goat. This is probably the closest I'll ever get to an official action figure of my fursona, am I right? I mean, it's basically me. This is one of those figures that checks all the Austin boxes. It's a nice detailed action figure. It's of a goat. He's got a cool kind of Ewok shaman staff. I just had me written all over it. So I went to WonderCon 2023 looking for this figure, and I was able to find him at a independent toy vendor booth that actually sold this figure $25 less than the online price. That's why you always got to support your independent toy stores, especially at conventions. Conventions are the best outlets to find toy dealers because they're willing to give you good deals on these figures. Mythic Legions, online, they can range anywhere between like $60 to even $100, depending on the figure. They're quite pricey. But at a convention, I noticed they were marked down significantly. And I'm already thinking I should have bought more, but that's why I have the next con, right? I gotta save my shekels to buy some more Mythic Legions. But let's open this guy and let's see how he is. Does he live up to the expectation? Let's get a cool thumbnail there. Okay, there we go. So Mythic Legions. First, before we open him, let's talk a little bit about the packaging design. The figure is displayed beautifully in a window box. Now, Four Horsemen has always done this since those Outer Spacemen figures, where they're on a plastic blister card, but it's not sealed to the back like most figures, where you would rip it open. They actually have these pull tabs on the side so that you can save the packaging, which I really appreciate because the artwork on here is quite cool, and I would like to hang it on my wall. Now, on the sides of the figure, and I'll show this in a camera shot you're seeing right now, there's lots of lore about this character. So if you want to pause it at any point and take in all this Mythic Legions lore, you're more than welcome to. I know some people are really die-hard about the Mythic Legions universe and the different tribes. There's like the animal tribe and the elf tribe. But the way I see it is, I think all of these 6-inch fantasy figures are kind of interchangeable and displayable at once. I've joked in the past that this 6-inch fantasy style figure is what I dub Shrek scale, because it's the size of the Shrek figures. And that's kind of where I started getting into these bigger figures, because I've always been a pretty diehard 3 3/4 inch figure with the Ewoks and the Calico Krotos, until I got back into collecting Shrek. And you know, Shrek led to Narnia, and now Narnia has led to Mythic Legions. So I'm kind of just putting together a 6-inch fantasy shelf right now that just contains a plethora of Shrek, Narnia, Mythic Legions, and some other toy lines. Here's actually a cool thing. Before I open this figure, there was a great line in the 2000s. I feature this figure a lot, and I get a lot of questions on this one in the comments. This line is called the Realm of the Claw, and they were fantasy animal figures. So this one here is Zinda the cat. They made a cheetah girl, and they made a couple of like tiger guys, and they're almost like a precursor to Mythic Legions. If you look them up online, a lot of people selling these figures will mistake them for Mythic Legions. They're not Mythic Legions. They're by Stan Winston, the legendary prop maker, and they're their own awesome toy line, but they are really nicely compatible with Mythic Legions. So if you want a more affordable way to build up a Mythic Legions collection, again, you don't have to buy all the Mythic Legions. You can mix in other figures. So Realm of the Claw is a good one. Another good one with Mythic Legions is Narnia. A lot of the Narnia figures were done in the 6-inch scale, and the monsters are quite amazing. I quite love this Minotaur from the Prince Caspian toy line. He's really cool, and he would be right at home with any Mythic Legions or He-Man figure. Yeah, Narnia definitely has some hidden gems in the action figure realm, and they're gonna look so good when I put them next to each other. So, enough pontificating about other action figure lines. Let's crack open this guy. Let's kind of start here. Coffee sip. Delish, absolutely delish. I can't believe here I am buying more Four Horsemen toys all these years later. I think I was 10 years old when I got into the Outer Spaceman. I was 10. I was on action figure collecting forums, and I had heard about this independent toy line. Oh, something fell there. That was kind of making the waves. And those figures were really cool for the time because, again, it was neat to buy something that was being independently produced, and they had a lot of quality to them. So here's kind of the Mythic Legions insert. You can keep that if you'd like. I don't know. There's a booklet here that says, oh, look at this. It's actually a message from the Four Horsemen, and it says, joints on Mythic Legions figures can become tight after production. When posing Mythic Legions figures for the first time, especially during cold weather, it's recommended that heat in the form of warm air from a hairdryer or warm water be used on tight joints in order to loosen the joints slightly before posing. Gently rock the joint forwards and backwards, or counterclockwise until the joint moves freely. Failure to do so could result in irreparable joint damage. Now, this is true with all action figures. Especially more collector-focused ones, like NECA. The joints get really tight when they're shipped. The plastic just sticks together when it's shipped overseas for long periods of time. NECA does not include a message like this, so unfortunately a lot of kids and collectors just snap those figures right out of the packaging. It's really unfortunate. But I appreciate they did that. Now, oh, he has some accessories right here. A little bag of accessories. Now, I don't know if I'm going to need to do that because I'm currently in California where the weather is quite sunny and nice. And I've dealt with many action figures with tight joints before, trust me. It's kind of a been there, done that. think the worst joints I had on an action figure were the NECA Team Fortress figures. Those ones, I don't know. Those joints were terrible. Even warm water couldn't fix those. Those action figures were terrible. Team Fortress deserved better. Okay, so here is his shaman staff. Really cool. Very Ewok-like. I could totally see a Chief Chopper holding this and using it. Quite like that. We have a bag of accessories, which include his shoulder pauldrons. Quite nice metal pauldrons there. Oh, an axe. Oh, of course, he's an axe user, just like my character. Oh, I like that. You know, axes are the coolest fantasy weapons. Who cares about swords? Axes are great. You can, like, chop trees with them and build things, and you can throw them and be a lumberjack. Axes are totally awesome. And he's got a messenger bag here. Wow, this really is an action figure of me. This is like, you know, the three tools of the trade with Austin the Brimstone. An Ewok staff, a lumberjack axe, and a satchel with a little parchment paper attached. Maybe a map. Yeah, I like that. And now for the money shot. Look at that. So here is the base figure in all of his glory. And then I'll cut to some shots you're seeing now that are quite nice of the figure. So looking at it myself, the sculpting is immaculate, like the Four Horsemen is known for. The texture on the outfit is beautiful. I love how the mesh of the short is distinctly different from the chainmail armor. The face has a fur texture that is really, really nice. Nothing sloppy on the face at all. The nose, the beard, the horns have a lot of wear and age to them, which is quite nice. The belt is a separate piece and has this leather texture to it that is really impressive and makes it feel worn. And finally, the hoof legs are shiny. Yeah, they almost look like space armor, they're so shiny. They really gleam. So yeah, wonderful job blending all of the textures. Another thing I want to say about this figure is the paint job is very toy-like, and I quite like that. What I mean is that it's got a little bit of shine to it, and it's not just a flat, matte color scheme. It doesn't look as bland as some of the NECA figures, which are just a full matte paint job with no reflectivity to it. And then it's not as shiny as, say, the Super 7 Ultimates, where they look so plasticky and cheap. This is a nice blend of both worlds. So I won't need to apply any warm water because it looks like the joints are all really, really smooth. Like, I'm just bending this guy and the joints are just gliding with no problems, which is wonderful. Again, I appreciate that they put that message in there, and I imagine some of the more complex and bigger monster figures, I think those joints would probably get pretty tight, because big figures always have tight joints. I don't know why, that just seems to be the case ever since the Star Wars rencore. But this guy poses easily with no problems at all. Like, he can do a number of poses. And for a guy with this much armor on, it's impressive the movement he has. Like, his legs are not hindered at all by this skirt. He can do a lot. And the sculpting is just amazing. Like, look at the hooves. Look how fine those hooves are. They are fantastic. So the sculpt and the paint job is flawless. I don't see any issues with this action figure. Again, it is very toy-like for being a collector's toy. I could actually, like, futz with this thing and have no issue. Now, his pauldrons have little clips. They just kind of snap on there. Four Horsemen knows their stuff. They really do. So there he is with his cool shoulder blades on. I don't know if I'm going to display those with him on or not. I mean, they look cool, don't get me wrong, but they look a little big. And I almost like him looking a bit more homely, like he's some sort of like potion merchant. So here's his bag, and the head easily pops off. Okay, so it took me a moment to figure out how the axe goes in his hands. And this is really strange, but his hands are actually made of a very light rubber and not a plastic, so the fingers can bend. I was worried I was breaking the figure when I was bending these fingers, but they are actually bendable, almost like a bendy figure, so that the weapons can fit. I have to say that's really unique. I do worry over time that those would disintegrate, since they are made of a light rubber material, but you know, for now, I'll just be happy that the weapons can easily go in the hands. Okay, so here is our goat man, whose name, by the way, is Krotos. I just realized I went the whole video without ever mentioning that his name was Krotos. So, this is Krotos from Mythic Legions, basically an action figure of Austin the Brimstone, let's be honest. I'm going to be a little bit biased on this review because I love the design so much. But I was willing to make some concessions for the sake of the design. For example, if the paint was sloppy or the joints were tight, I was gonna forgive it because I quite like the design a lot. However, Krotos here is pretty much flawless. I don't have anything bad to say on this figure at all. I have no gripes. And the fact that this figure, I paid $20 less than the infamous Super 7 Robin Hood I talked about on this channel, well, that's honestly embarrassing. Again, if you're not at a convention where you can get a deal, I think these things run between $60 and $85. They're kind of priced by the character. But I don't think any go over $100. And for what you're basically getting a mini posable statue. These figures are excellent, they're collector quality, and when companies like Hasbro try to sell these 6-inch collector figures that are really nothing more than cheap toys, stringy toys that are barely put together, they can't hold a candle to this stuff. It makes me wish more people knew about toys like this, because they should by all accounts sell better than what the big companies are doing. This figure right here is infinitely better than any Star Wars Black Series figure I've held. Those figures always have the worst tight joints. They just snap, and those are made for kids. Those are sold at retail to kids, so it kind of baffles me that an independent action figure is more playable and collectible and displayable and durable than what big box retail is claiming to sell for both kids and collectors. Yeah, I'd have no problem actually giving this to a kid. I would have played with this a lot as a kid, and I wouldn't have had any issue. He blends right in with the Narnia gang, and he just feels like he could be an ally or maybe an enemy. He's just a really cool figure, and he's gonna look wonderful with my fantasy figures. Oh no, I'm afraid I've caught the Mythic Legions bug. Oh, I'm gonna be stuck now with all these cat people and deer people, and oh lord. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to mortgage the house. But at least I'll have a goat night.